Mavs fans, welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, we are going to be talking about my Dallas Mavericks, specifically with a season preview here for this upcoming season. The day I'm recording this was the start of training camps. There's a lot of quotes out here. Jason Kidd talking about the new team, Luka Doncic talking about Kristaps Porzingis, a lot of different stuff going on. And I thought today would be a perfect day to record a video talking about the season preview here for the Dallas Mavericks, building off of last year, what we could see with some new coaching changes, a whole bunch of moving pieces with the roster, organization as a whole, and a few other things that I think are really key to mention when we talk about this Dallas Mavericks team, a team that I think is maybe a sleeper for NBA Finals appearance out of the Western Conference. We will see what I really think by the end of this video, but before we jump into giving my thoughts and analysis, you guys know the drill. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button if you are new to Utility Sports. We'd love to have your support, especially you Mavs fans out here. I am an MFFL, Mav fan for life, so I'd love to have your guys' support on the channel. Mavs fans got to stick together. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the video here. Talking about last season, that's the place where we're leaving off of and building toward for the future is going into the future. We have to look back at this past season where the Mavericks finished as the 5th seed in the Western Conference with a 42-30 record. However, one key thing to talk about, they were 11-11 at one point. Their last 50 games, they were 31-19 in those last 50 games. And there is a key reason why. Of course, we see here that the playoff matchup was with the Los Angeles Clippers. We pushed them to 7 games while they were healthy. Only key player they didn't have was Serge Ibaka. Even with a healthy Kawhi, we pushed them to the very brink of that series. Almost came out of there with a win. Unfortunately, did not. We were a really good team last year, despite a first-round exit, honestly. That's one of the tough parts about matching up with a team like the Los Angeles Clippers right away in round one. We've had it 2 years in a row. But last year, we started out so poor because of COVID violations, regulations, of course, that whole dilemma there. We had 5 of our top 8 players out for a couple weeks near the start of the season. You all probably remember that ESPN or Bleacher Report post talking about how the Knicks had our pick. Oh no, the Knicks ended up trading that pick down in the draft because it wasn't that valuable to them. They actually wanted to get off the money of that. One of those key assets from the Kristaps Porzingis trade ended up getting traded down for salary cap reasons. So honestly, the Dallas Mavericks are very well positioned based off of that trade, and also just in general. If we didn't have the COVID issue at the start of last year, I think our team would have been even better. We finished as the 5th seed, could have been even higher, maybe 3rd, 4th seed, honestly, with how well we played last year. And that was with a lot of other issues as well on the roster, which we'll get into a little bit here when we talk about the coaching change. Rick Carlisle is out as the Dallas Mavericks head coach. Of course, he stepped down from the head coaching position. Jason Kidd, longtime Maverick, comes in to be the next head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, which there's a lot of ramifications from this style of move. There's a big X's and O's switch, a big schematic change as well for the defensive side of the floor, and also a key personnel aspect to this as well, because you're looking at Rick Carlisle did not have a good relationship with Luka Doncic. There is no denying that. Anyone who's watched Dallas Mavericks games knows that Rick Carlisle and Luka Doncic did not really see eye to eye, especially when Luka was actually out on the floor executing the offense. Rick Carlisle and him just never really got to mesh, even though I think Luka Doncic did believe Carlisle was a good coach. And I also believe that Rick Carlisle believes that Luka Doncic is a phenomenal player. I just think from an X's and O's standpoint, you know, usage of timeouts, management, that kind of thing, lineup construction, I don't think Luka and Carlisle ever saw eye to eye. And also Kristaps Porzingis was not used correctly by Rick Carlisle. I'm starting to really love some of the things I'm hearing from Jason Kidd already at the start of training camp here today. Some of the interviews for him already today. I'm loving what I'm hearing from Jason Kidd. Everything he has said so far has been the right thing, in my opinion. So I'm very excited about that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think one key thing here, one key trend that we're going to see, Jason Kidd's going to empower Kristaps Porzingis to be the player that everyone knows he can be. And he's also going to put Luka in spots where he doesn't have to be the sole focus on offense at all times. Luka is so talented, so good, but I think he can be used a little bit more properly where he doesn't wear down throughout a game, doesn't get into the 4th quarter tired, and already having to have done all the scoring and assisting for the Dallas Mavericks. I think that Jason Kidd's going to bring a better mesh for our offense going into this next season. So now let's focus individually on Kristaps Porzingis, because I think he's really the big-time swing player for this franchise this year. Jason Kidd today, when asked about Kristaps Porzingis and his role in the offense, he was quoted as saying, "There is no bad shot when Kristaps Porzingis is shooting the ball," and I completely agree with that. You know, Mavs fans, I know you're probably a little discouraged when he shoots one of those 15-footers from the elbow that misses off the front iron, hits the backboard. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You guys can visualize it right now as I'm saying it. You probably are a little discouraged by that, but Kristaps, it's more than about just making a shot here and there, especially during the flow of the game when we're talking second, third quarter shots. It's about trying to maintain a rhythm for your second best player, and I think Kristaps Porzingis never really had that these past 2 seasons. Despite posting a career high in field goal percentage last year, there just wasn't a lot of rhythm for him. He didn't know when his shots were coming. He wasn't a staple point of the offense like he should have been, and he still managed to put up 20 points a game. If he's really a key focal point to the offense like Jason Kidd's wanting him to be, he can easily score 23, 24 points a night on efficient shooting. One key thing, I've talked about this a lot on the channel, is we need to find ways to get him the ball a little bit closer to the hoop. He's so big at 7'3" that if you get him, 2-3 feet closer than that 14-foot mark, if he's catching about 10 to 11 feet away from the hoop, his efficiency is going to skyrocket. He doesn't have the strength to back anyone down, so it's key for him to be catching the ball in those spots rather than catching at 15 feet and then trying to move guys from there. It just doesn't work that way for Kristaps Porzingis. Another key thing about Jason Kidd, he's went out to out of the states to Latvia to visit Kristaps Porzingis with his family in his home country. And that kind of shows the dedication that Jason Kidd has of really building and mending Kristaps Porzingis' relationship with the Dallas Mavericks. I don't think that there's any secret here that the Mavericks have been considering offers for Kristaps Porzingis, and that Kristaps Porzingis at one point or another would have been happy with a trade out of Dallas. The relationship was not good for a little while, and I think that Jason Kidd's actually managing this relationship beautifully so far. I'm actually very excited about how he's interacting with Kristaps Porzingis at this point, while still being, a coach that's going to make him a better player. He's also, trying to show, hey, I care about you as a player. I want you to be successful in my system. And I think that there is going to be a lot of success when it comes to Kristaps Porzingis' new role with the Dallas Mavericks. And that new role is going to be all about that readjusted offense that will keep Kristaps Porzingis engaged. There won't be stretches where Kristaps Porzingis doesn't get a shot up for 5 minutes. That just can't happen when your second best player is on the floor, even when Luka's sharing the floor with them. I think that they've got to go a little bit more into the pick and roll with Kristaps and Luka, which I expect to be a staple of Jason Kidd's offense. I think the pick and pop game's got to be utilized more, specifically when Kristaps is being guarded by a true center. I think that's really got to be the key thing. And looking at Kristaps last year, like I said, he was not bad last season. Shot 47.5% from the field, 37.5% from three for a 7'3" guy. Those are elite numbers. 20 points per game, 9 rebounds a night, 1.8 assists a game, and also 2 blocks. And remember, he was playing off of a torn meniscus that he suffered in the bubble. There was a shortened offseason. He came back very quickly into the season. Jaren Jackson of the Memphis Grizzlies suffered the same injury a couple months before Kristaps Porzingis and didn't return to NBA action until over 3.5 months after Kristaps Porzingis did. Porzingis wanted to be out on the floor. He showed his dedication to trying to help the Dallas Mavericks win, and I don't think he gets enough credit in circles of Dallas Mavericks fans for his willingness to try and put his body on the line in order to help Dallas try and reach their ultimate goal, which is winning an NBA championship. I think this year is a big year for Kristaps Porzingis. Luka's talked about it. Tim Hardaway Jr. talked about it today in some of their meetings, and also in their press conferences. And also Jason Kidd seems to be all in on Kristaps Porzingis being a focal point of this offense. I love that, and I think it's going to lead to Kristaps Porzingis having an even better defensive season than he did last year. I think was kind of a minus defender at times last year. I think he can be a real plus when he's engaged offensively and really putting his best effort out on the defensive end of the floor. Plus, his mobility is going to be better, coming back 1 year removed from that knee injury as well. Now transitioning to our actual full-time star player, that's Luka Doncic, arguably the best player in the NBA at this point, at the ripe age of 22 years old. He is a beast on the court, and I think a full offseason is going to really help him again. He's got some key areas of improvement. I'm very, very certain that he's going to already have improved in these areas because last offseason, even though it was a shortened offseason, I had one really big discredit toward him. He needed to improve as a mid-range shooter. He didn't take it a lot. He oftentimes didn't even look for that shot. And when he did, he wasn't shooting it at a super efficient clip. And then this year, fast forward a year later, he's one of the better mid-range shooters in the NBA now. He's got that little pivot in the mid-range area where he stops on a dime, turns over his right or left shoulder, and knocks it down with consistency. He's also capable of pulling up now into the mid-range area, doesn't necessarily need to stop and spin. He's just really improved as a player already throughout his career. And I think he needs to get in better shape, which the Olympics this offseason should help him have better stamina because he just gets worn out throughout games and throughout the season. Part of that's on Rick Carlisle, the way that he used him. But part of it's also on Luka Doncic's conditioning, especially early on in the season. When you're a player as good as Luka Doncic, these are things that I'm nitpicking at. Okay, stamina, free throw shooting, and his ability to play off the ball. He's such a good player. I don't want to discredit Luka Doncic at all, but I think that there are just some slight areas where he could, really elevate his play just a little bit. And that maybe makes the world of a difference from the Mavericks getting bounced in the first round to maybe making a run to the NBA Finals and possibly winning it all if the bounces go right for this team. Off the ball movement, I think one real key thing for him is utilizing him out of the post as a scoring option down there where he doesn't have to work to get his shot off really. He just moves off the ball, ends up finding himself around the block 14 to 15 feet possibly. And he's a talented mid-range shooter now. Like I said, he's really improved that area of his game. And I think, a slight move to the post a little bit more often kind of gives the Mavericks a little bit of a new wrinkle in their offense. That will help Luka Doncic find a little bit more consistency and a little bit more of an improved efficiency, especially when he's really got it going and finding two defenders running at him from 38 feet. You don't have to do that when you're catching right around that 13 to 15 foot mark. It's hard to double down at that spot, especially when you have a guy like Luka Doncic who is as good at passing the basketball as he is. One other key thing that I think Jason Kidd also mentioned today quite a bit in his press conferences was he wants Luka Doncic to not only be the player that he is, but he wants him to rely a little bit more on his teammates, specifically Kristaps Porzingis. And for a lot of reasons, I understand why Luka Doncic has played the way he has so far. First of all, Rick Carlisle is telling him to do that when he was his coach. I'm not trying to, say Luka Doncic is a ball hog or anything like that. He's not. He's a phenomenal player, makes the right play 99% of the time. He is very, very talented and someone that you have to trust having the ball in his hands. However, there's areas in this team. There's some other strong players. Tim Hardaway Jr., Kristaps Porzingis, Jalen Brunson. There's a lot of talent here in Dallas. And I think that Luka Doncic doesn't necessarily need to do it all at all times. And that's the way that Jason Kidd also feels about this. And then looking back at last year, he averaged 27.5 points a game, 8 rebounds a night, 8.5 assists, 48% from the field and 35% from three, shooting some of the toughest three-pointers in the NBA. We all know that famous one-legged three-pointer that he hit in the playoffs. But he also, consistently hitting that step back with guys all draped all over him. He can hit with any type of coverage on him. He's a phenomenal scoring option. And I don't even think that those field goal percentages do him justice for the level of difficulty of shots he has to make and also his real true talent as a shooter in the NBA. He's a phenomenal player. And I think these are just some very slight areas of improvement for him moving forward. Projected starting lineups now for the Dallas Mavericks. The first one I have drafted here, which I think this is really the key thing to talk about when it comes to Jason Kidd. The first one here on the left, Luka Doncic at the point guard. Tim Hardaway Jr. starting shooting guard. Dorian Finney-Smith starting at the 3. Kristaps at the 4 and Dwight Powell at the 5. This is somewhat of the traditional style we saw last year from Rick Carlisle, except Tim Hardaway Jr., of course, usually came off the bench, but my key point here is starting a center next to Kristaps Porzingis is one of the options for Jason Kidd here because the Mavericks are overloaded at the center position. Looking at the bench in this option, you have Jalen Brunson, Trey Burke, Sterling Brown, Tyrell Terry, who I think could be a key X-factor player to watch this season. If he can really get himself onto the floor, his shooting ability kind of is reminiscent of what Seth Curry, was a few years back for the Dallas Mavericks, and I think he would be a nice addition into the constant lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. Josh Green, Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleber, Moses Brown, Boban Marjanovic, and Willie Cauley-Stein. This is a deep Dallas Mavericks team. There's a lot of nice players on this roster. You can go 10 to 11 deep throughout the regular season and not really feel any repercussions for it. I like what this team has coming off the bench. So option one is interesting because you get Kristaps playing at the 4. However, the one that I prefer slightly here is actually option 2, where you start Luka Doncic at the point guard with Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith as your 2 wings, Maxi Kleber at the 4, and then Kristaps Porzingis at the 5. The reason I prefer this lineup you get a lot of shooting and a lot of defense on the floor. Maxi Kleber, one of our better defenders there in Dallas. Reggie Bullock, a very nice perimeter defender. Dorian Finney-Smith, we know what he is as a defender. Kristaps Porzingis, I think, is an underrated rim protector. You have a lot of defense around Luka and a lot of shooting, and I think if Kristaps Porzingis takes that step forward as an offensive weapon, you're not really going to struggle to score the basketball at all with this lineup. And then coming off the bench, you have Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr., one of the best combinations off the bench that you're going to find around the league. Those two guys finished in the top 5 last year in Sixth Man of the Year voting, and I think very likely could do that as well. Hardaway Jr. last year only started, I believe, 31 games, so he came off the bench for 41 games last year and found a lot of success in that role. Then you still have a lot of other nice players off the bench as well, Trey Burke, Sterling Brown. But the only issue with this lineup is really what do you do at that forward position long-term off the bench. Josh Green's really the only guy, and maybe Sterling Brown to a degree. Of course, Tim Hardaway Jr. probably plays at 2 or 3 as well a little bit. But you have a lot of centers is the key point. What do you do at the power forward spot? Because I don't really see a way that Dwight Powell, Moses Brown, Boban Marjanovic, or Willie Cauley-Stein coexist together. So then you get into an interesting spot where you have to try and stagger your lineups a little bit so that you have Luka or Kristaps probably on the floor for rebounding purposes and also for shooting purposes. To make sure you don't end up, really drying out your lineup, especially around that power forward spot. So maybe we see Kristaps play a little bit of the 4, a little bit of the 5 this year. Let me know in the comments, which lineup here do you prefer? Do you prefer option 1 or do you prefer option 2 for our Dallas Mavericks? And then now the final aspect here that I want to talk about, projected win-loss total. Vegas currently has the Mavericks as an over-under of 48.5 wins. And for me, last year they were 42-30, remember, in a 72-game season. I'm smashing the over on that. With the COVID issues last year, I'm for sure hitting the over. I think that they're going to win 51, maybe 52 games this year. I think they're going to be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. And I do think that they have enough to get to the Western Conference Finals and possibly the actual finals when it comes down to the matchups. That's a lot to project right now. We don't know exactly what the Lakers are going to look like. We don't know what Jamal Murray's health looks like. We don't know if Kawhi Leonard could possibly play in the playoffs or not. At this point, my guess is he won't. But we'll have to see when we get a little bit closer to that. But I do think that the Dallas Mavericks are a dark horse team to make the NBA Finals from the Western Conference. I think that they very easily could make the Western Conference Finals. And I for sure see a first-round win this year in the books for the Dallas Mavericks. I would be absolutely shocked if they don't win a series this year. Jason Kidd's going to get these guys playing, and I think he's going to bring out the best of both Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, which is really, really vital for this Mavericks organization. Those two guys are the build-around players. We need to see them take the step forward that everyone knows they're capable of. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think the Dallas Mavericks could win an NBA Finals this year? I'd be very interested to see what you all think. I would not rule it out, personally. When you have a player as good as Luka Doncic and a nice supporting cast around him in Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, Jalen Brunson as well, who I think is going to have a bounce-back year this next year, especially after his poor performance in the playoffs. This Mavericks team can ball, and I think that they're going to impress on night 1 and throughout the season. Again, let me know what you all think in the comment section below. Looking forward to hearing from you. Hopefully you did enjoy today's video. Mavs fans, hit that subscribe button, please. Love to have you be a part of the channel here, and we'll catch you guys in the very next video.